Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has topped 12 million with nearly 256,000 fatalities. India has recorded over 500 deaths in a day, bringing the tally over 133,000 with nearly 9.1 million infections. Pakistan has registered over 2,600 new cases and 59 deaths overnight, taking the toll to 7,662. Globally, the virus has claimed over 1.37 million lives and infected more than 58 million. A Pennsylvania court has dismissed a lawsuit from the Trump campaign that sought to invalidate millions of mail-in votes in the state. The move paves the way for the state to certify Joe Biden's win by 80,000 votes. This comes 2 days after the ballot audit in the battleground state of Georgia declared Biden as the winner. Afghanistan's chief negotiator Abdullah says Kabul and the Taliban are very close to breaking a stalemate in peace talks. In an interview, Chairman of High Council for National Reconciliation Abdullah said both sides will hopefully pass this phase and get to the substantial issues, including security. His statement comes a day after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met the Taliban and the government negotiators in Doha. Israel says it has bombed the western and southern parts of Gaza after firing of a rocket from the area. The Israeli Defense Forces say they struck Hamas targets, including an underground infrastructure and a military compound. There were no immediate reports of casualties. And in tennis, Russian Daniil Medvedev has ousted Rafael Nadal in the semi-finals to book a battle with Dominic Thiem for the ATP Finals title. In a sizzling contest, Medvedev beat the 20-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal 3-6, 7-6, 6-3. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has topped 12 million with nearly 256,000 fatalities. India has recorded over 500 deaths in a day, bringing the tally over 133,000 with nearly 9.1 million infections. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.37 million lives and infected some 58 million.
The second wave of COVID-19 is spreading at an unprecedented rate, infecting 2 million Americans in the past 12 days. To make things worse, millions of Americans are expected to travel for the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, ignoring warnings from health officials. Meanwhile, Eastern Europe alone accounts for more than 5 million cases. Amid surging cases, the UK is set to announce a one-year package worth nearly $4 billion to support the state-run National Health Service. With an approved vaccine still not available, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has given emergency use authorization for the antibody therapy that cured President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Moderna Chief Executive Stefan Bancel has finally given a ballpark figure of what the vaccine would cost. In an interview, Bancel said Moderna will charge governments between $25 and $37 per dose.
The Group of 20 Economies has pledged to do needful to support poor countries as they struggle to recover from COVID-19 pandemic. Saudi Arabia is hosting the two-day virtual summit to discuss how to deal with COVID-19 and its economic fallout. More in this report.
The leaders expressed concern the pandemic might further deepen global divisions between the rich and the poor. The host stressed equal and equitable distribution of resources to eliminate the virus completely.
The pandemic has demonstrated that international cooperation is the optimal way to overcome crisis. We must focus on the most vulnerable segments. We must provide support for all countries of the world, for we would not be safe until everyone is safe.
China's President Xi Jinping proposed a global QR code system to enable cross-border movement amid the pandemic. QR codes are barcodes that hold information that can be scanned and read by smartphones. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said it is impossible to deal with the pandemic without cooperation. He added the countries with weaker economies should not be left to their fate. German Chancellor Angela Merkel went a step further, calling for collective preemptive and proactive preparedness for a similar challenge.
Diese kurzfristige Hilfe ist in unserer
We need reliable funding, better cooperation, greater independence. And the G20 can provide important, indeed crucial support in this area. If we stand together across the globe, we can control and overcome this virus and its impact.
French President Emmanuel Macron said the world will need to choose between global cooperation and national selfishness. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow is ready to provide its Sputnik V vaccine to other countries who need it. Putin added Russia is also preparing second and third vaccines against COVID-19, while U.S. President Donald Trump skipped the special side conference which was focused on the pandemic.
In Pakistan, 59 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 overnight, registering the highest daily number since the second wave in the country. The health ministry says the death toll has risen to 7,662. The ministry said 2,665 tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. It said there are more than 36,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The ministry noted out of over 374,000 countrywide cases, nearly 330,000 have recovered so far. The southern province of Sindh has the highest number of cases with over 162,000 confirmed infections. The province capital city of Karachi has imposed smart and micro lockdown, 2-week lockdowns in various locations. Indian troops have launched a so-called cordon and search operations in the Baramulla and the Poonch districts in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. A joint team of Indian Army, police and paramilitary forces cordoned off the areas. The reports say all entry and exit points were sealed by the Indian Forces personnel before the start of house-to-house searches in the area. Indian troops also arrested 2 persons during a military crackdown in the Chatpura village of the Pulwama district last night. Meanwhile, 3 Maoist freedom fighters have been killed in a gunfight with security forces in India's eastern Bihar state. An Indian parliamentary force says the encounter took place during a search and area domination operations in the Bachati forest. It said authorities have recovered 2 weapons. The Maoists have been fighting for the rights of tribal people for more than 3 decades. Over in the United States, a Pennsylvania court has dismissed a lawsuit from the Trump campaign seeking to invalidate millions of mail-in votes. The move paves the way for the state to certify Joe Biden's win by some 80,000 votes. After a scathing court setback in Pennsylvania, President Donald Trump faces increased pressure from his fellow Republicans to drop his effort to overturn the United States presidential election and concede to Democrat Joe Biden. Since Biden was declared the winner 2 weeks ago, Trump has launched a barrage of lawsuits and mounted a pressure campaign to prevent states from certifying their votes total. So far, attempts to thwart certification have failed in courts in Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona. Now, a Republican federal judge dismissed a similar effort in Pennsylvania. District Judge Matthew Brand said he has no authority to take away the right to vote of even a single citizen. He described the case as strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations. In a statement, Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, said he was disappointed with the ruling and will seek an accelerated appeal. For Trump to have any hopes of overturning the election, he needs to reverse the outcome in Pennsylvania. This comes 2 days after a manual audit in the battleground state of Georgia declared Biden as the winner. Meanwhile, election officials in Wisconsin have accused Trump observers of obstructing a recount in the state's largest county. Afghanistan's chief negotiator Abdullah Abdullah says Kabul and the Taliban are very close to breaking a stalemate in peace talks. In an interview, Chairman of High Council for National Reconciliation Abdullah Abdullah said both sides will hopefully pass this phase and get to the substantive issues, including security. He added if a complete comprehensive ceasefire is not possible, reduction in violence could be an option. Abdullah warned that the increasing violence is damaging the trust of people over the peace process. He said the United States troops should withdraw from Afghanistan when the conditions are met. Abdullah's statement comes a day after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met the Taliban and the government negotiators in Doha. Australia's defense chief says the country's forces must own the report that highlighted their crimes in Afghanistan. In an interview, General Angus Campbell vowed to changes to avoid recurrence of such atrocities. The top military official said that he will be held accountable until the report is dealt with thoroughly. Campbell said if the defense forces do not fix the horror, it will appear again. He said that is unacceptable.
I see layers of responsibility here, David, and that's why it's going to take a little while to work through this report, its recommendations, and to thoroughly implement it. I am determined to see deep, comprehensive and enduring change where it's needed.
The report found senior Australian commandos forced junior soldiers to kill defenseless captives in order to blood them for combat. Iraq says ISIS militants have killed 8 people, including a village police chief in northern Salahdin province. A provincial command officer said 10 others were wounded in the attack in Alam-Sagha village. He said ISIS militants detonated an explosive device in a civilian car. The official said they opened fire when a joint force of police and the Hashad al-Sabi forces arrived. The Iraqi officer said ISIS militants withdrew from the village after the attack. Israel says it has bombed the western and southern parts of Gaza. Tel Aviv accused Hamas of firing a rocket at the southern city of Ashkelon. In a tweet, the Israeli Defense Forces say they struck Hamas targets, including rockets manufacturing sites. It said the airstrikes also targeted underground infrastructure, a training facility, as well as a military compound. There were no immediate reports of casualties. Hamas officials have not commented on the accusations. For the 22nd straight week, thousands of Israeli protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem while demanding his resignation. Protesters say Netanyahu's indictment is a major corruption and misuse of power disqualifies him from holding the public office. Israelis also see Netanyahu's administration's response to the new surge of coronavirus as too slow. Protesters rallied outside Netanyahu's official residence while blowing whistles, waving signs and flags.
We're protesting against a process, a very bad process that is happening here, kind of a dictatorship. We see many things that lead to dictatorship, like closing the court half a year ago, all the corona protocols.
Demonstrators say people are suffering and dying in hospitals, but the government is not responding in any emergency manner. The Ethiopian military says it is planning to use heavy artillery and tanks to siege Tigray's capital city of Mekelle. Talking to state media, a military spokesperson said the next phases will be the decisive part of the operation. The spokesperson warned the civilians in the northern region to be aware of the danger. He said so far federal forces were only attacking targets where Tigray People Liberation Forces were stationed at. But he added the case of the capital city might be different. Meanwhile, TPLF says their forces are standing firm on the southern front. The Ethiopian government says Tigrayan forces have destroyed bridges and booby-trapped roads with explosives in the south. However, it said the federal forces are making progress in the south. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has praised Russia's peacekeeping efforts in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. This comes after Russia brokered a ceasefire agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. In a statement, Russia's defense ministry said Aliyev met Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu in Baku. It said both discussed the stabilization of the situation in the Nagorno-Karabakh as Shoigu commended the effective ceasefire. Russia has sent troops to reinforce its border guards in Armenia and secure a peace settlement with Azerbaijan. The deployment was made at the request of Armenia to maintain peace in Nagorno-Karabakh. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. West African nation of Burkina Faso is holding presidential and legislative elections today. Over 6.5 million are registered to vote, but no ballots will be cast in 1/5 of the country's territory. The Electoral Commission says most of the polling stations in north and east will remain shut due to the fear of violence. The official data shows that at 400,000 people, which is nearly 7% of the electorate, will be unable to cast their votes. The United States Embassy has issued a warning to American citizens in Burkina Faso amid a deteriorating security situation. 12 contenders are appearing in the election, with the current president, Roch Kabore, who is looking for a second 5-year term. Opposing candidate Zéphine Debris has accused the president of orchestrating a massive fraud to re-securing his election. In Guatemala, thousands of demonstrators have set the country's parliament on fire in a protest against slashing of healthcare and education budget. The protesters demand a presidential veto of the budget. 14 people were injured after clashes broke out with police who used tear gas to disperse the mob. With cuts on healthcare and education, the $12.9 billion budget has increased public debt. Vice President Guillermo Castillo has opposed the budget plan, demanding President Alejandro Gittimi's resignation. In a tweet, Gittimi said he is considering modifications to the budget. The president added he has been meeting with various groups to present changes to the controversial budget. Gittimi took the office in January, shortly before the pandemic struck the country, home to an already weak economy. A man has reportedly been killed in a shark attack off a popular beach on Western Australia's north coast. Local media said the victim was recovered from the water off Broom's Cable Beach. He was treated by local police officers before taken to the hospital. The Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development says Cable Beach was closed after the incident. Excavations in Pompeii have recovered the remains of 2 dwellers frozen in time by an eruption of Mount Vesuvius nearly 2,000 years ago. More in this report.
Pompeii, 23 kilometers southeast of Naples, was home to about 13,000 people when it was buried under ash, pumice pebbles, and dust as it endured the force of the Vesuvius eruption in 79 AD. The ruins were not discovered until the 16th century, and organized excavations began about 1750. Now, Italian archaeologists have unearthed the exceptionally preserved bodies of 2 men.
The 2 victims are an incredible and extraordinary testimony of that morning of October 25, when the eruption took place. These 2 victims were perhaps seeking refuge when they were swept away by the pyroclastic current at 9 a.m. when the plume gets to Pompeii, destroying the higher part of the city completely, killing everybody in its path.
Archaeologists have tentatively identified the remains as a wealthy landowner and a younger enslaved person. The remains were found in Civita Giuliana, 700 meters northwest of the center of ancient Pompeii, in an underground chamber in the area of a large villa being excavated.
NASA and European Space Agency have launched a joint oceanography satellite. The Syntene I-6 is the first of the 2 identical satellites to provide critical measurements of sea level change. More in this report.
The Chang'e 5 probe will seek to collect material that can help scientists understand more about the moon's origins and formation. The mission will test China's ability to remotely acquire samples from space ahead of more complex missions. It may help answer questions such as how long the moon remained volcanically active in its interior and when its magnetic field dissipated. The team behind the project conducted its final joint test before the launch.
The mission will last 23 days, involving 23 times of major orbit control, 6 times of major separation control, powered lowering, moon surfacing taking off, lunar orbit rendezvous, and other relevant tasks of higher risks in the history.
If successful, the mission will make China only the third country to have retrieved lunar samples following the US and the Soviet Union decades ago.
In Switzerland, modest COVID-19 restrictions have allowed near-normal operations in the Zermatt town, while other alpine resorts keep their lifts shut. What arrangement authorities have made and what people think on the glacier where Zermatt offers year-round skiing in this report.
Blue skies over the Matterhorn drew skiers and snowboarders to Zermatt as well as police to break up crowds. The resort is known throughout the world for its skiing, especially Trift G for its moguls. The high altitude results in consistent skiing throughout the summer. Switzerland hopes a middle way of social distancing and mask wearing on lifts can prop up pillars of the economy and tourism without fueling the pandemic. Zermatt mayor also thinks the future looks bright.
We're trying hard at the moment to improve every possibility that is been offered. So with the distance, social distancing, masks, whatever. Because we believe we have to live with COVID-19. There's no way around it, and people need vacation, people need mountains, people need fresh air and sunshine, and that's our aim, to make it possible.
Some Swiss resorts, including Davos to the northwest, boast of cold fogging equipment. They think the weather is cold enough to blast the interiors of gondolas and kill 99% of the viruses, bacteria and spores in a minute. The Swiss Tourism Association has even adopted clean and safe as its motto in the hope of easing tourist nerves. But no matter what, there is no denying the sense of release from confinement that a day on slopes can bring for some.
I gotta say, I'm not really scared. I think it would be worse if you could not go to the mountains at all. And I think the protection here is kind of good for me, at least. There are not so many people here, so I think it's okay.
Switzerland is being a second wave coronavirus hotspot with 5,000 infections a day and mounting deaths. So much so, earlier authorities asked the vulnerable to put their wishes on paper in case the worst should happen. But Swiss resorts attempt to make some profit, while neighboring countries have all ordered even the high-altitude lifts to remain closed for now.
And now sports. In tennis, Daniil Medvedev beats Rafael Nadal in the semi-finals to book a battle with Dominic Thiem for the ATP Finals title. In a settling contest, the Russian thrashed the 20 times Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal 3-6, 7-6, and 6-3. Medvedev was the more aggressive player throughout and was composed in the final set. Nadal posted errors. The Russian hit 42 winners and smashed 13 aces to outclass the former world number one. The 24-year-old Medvedev reached the semi-finals as the only unbeaten player in his group. Earlier, Thiem defeated Serbia's world number one Novak Djokovic 7-5, 6-7, and 7-6. The Austrian fought back from a 4-0 deficit in the deciding third set tiebreaker to win and book his place in the final. In football, Borussia Dortmund have thrashed Hertha Berlin 5-2 at an away fixture in the Bundesliga league. Erling Braut and Haaland scored 4 second-half goals for the men in yellow. Brazilian winger Matheus Cunha scored in either half for Hertha. The in-form Haaland has secured 21 times in 17 matches for club and country this season. Dortmund will return to Champions League action on Tuesday, playing to host Club Brugge. In another fixture, Eintracht Frankfurt beat a 1-1 draw against RB Leipzig at home. Eamon Bardok, first half of the goal was equalized by Leipzig Yusuf Poulsen in the second half. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.